2 years ago, Deryk and I sat down in this same studio and recorded 7 episodes on the perfect loan process. 7 episodes walking through how to systematize every stage of a mortgage file from first contact to post-close. That series became arguably our most referenced content we've ever produced, and brokers told us they listened to it on repeat. They built checklists from it. They changed how they ran their current practice. And I remember thinking, this is great, but it's not enough. A podcast can inspire you, but it can't hold you accountable. It can't hand you a template. It can't track whether you actually did the work. So we built the whole thing, and today we're going to show you what it became, what we're calling our enhanced version, the Perfect Loan Process 2.0. Welcome to the Mortgage Broker Podcast, tailor-made for Canadian mortgage industry professionals. Proudly presented by A Better Way Mortgage Group, this podcast is your trusted source for insider insights, market updates, and strategies to elevate your career in the ever-evolving world of mortgage brokering. Whether you're a seasoned broker with A Better Way Mortgage Group or an industry enthusiast looking to stay ahead, our episodes are designed to empower you with the knowledge and tools you need to excel in the Canadian mortgage space. Welcome back to the Mortgage Broker Podcast. I'm Dean Lawton here with my partner, Deryk Williamson. We're really excited to jump into this one. It's something we've been working on for many years, going back to 2019 when we first implemented it into our business. And it's one of those things, we spent a ton of time coaching with Tim Braheem and taking his philosophy and making it into what it needed to be for our country and our business. And, that's kind of where we'll start there. Deryk, when we first went through Tim Braheem's program, what was, I'd say, the one thing that clicked for you?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that stood out to me. And the two biggest wow factors that I took from Tim were around consistency and how we make clients feel in the process, in the client journey. And, to use Cactus Club or Starbucks as an example, no matter who the hostess is, no matter who the server is, they say the same things. They make you feel comfortable. They seat you the same way every single time. If client experience changes from client to client, it really is not a system. And that's where you're playing with fire. Implementation of the PLP came for us in our previous business, and now the CPLP course and coach, which we're going to get into, which really hammers its process, but it's scripting, its templates, and its wow moments that come into play every single time you work with a client.
For anyone that doesn't know who Tim is, he's a US-based mortgage coach who built one of the most respected programs in the American mortgage industry. And his core thesis, it's pretty simple. Most brokers are reactive. They typically are scrambling on every file. There's no real structure to their client experience. And his version of the perfect loan process essentially flipped that and, designed every stage in advance. So knowing what you're going to say on the first client call to, know what your pre-approval conversation looks like, know how you handle the handoff to the lender, know what your post-close follow-up is. Every stage was very intentional. And the brokers in our network doing the most volume, the happiest clients, the best referral rates, they all had some version of this. Maybe not the exact perfect loan process or our version of the Canadian perfect process, but they did have a system. They had a rhythm. And the brokers who are struggling, they're very talented, but they're winging it every single time. And essentially our thesis became, what if we could take what the top 5% do naturally and systematize it for the other 95%. And that's really where, this podcast series started, going back 2 years ago with those 7 episodes.
I can tell you from experience, just with A Better Way over the last, a little over 3 years, brokers with a process, just from our engagement, right? From our shoes, these brokers are far calmer. They're typically not the ones with deals blowing up last minute. They're setting clear expectations with their clients up front, and they're also not wasting their time or the clients. And there's a ton of wasted time in our industry right now, given the rate environment. And it's interesting to see too, the ones with the process, they're always the ones engaging with us, looking for ways to improve their process, looking for ways to grow their business, even adding in a new line of business such as alt or reverse if they didn't play in that space before. And they can do this and they can rationalize it because their day is organized. And to speak, if you flip that around to the brokers who don't have a process, they're living in a very reactionary world, right? They're going to be far less efficient in their day. They're running a far riskier business model when it comes to to, mistakes in your client communication, mistakes in documentation review, mistakes in underwriting. Their efficiency is typically lower with lenders. And compliance is a huge piece of this, which we'll touch on later. But the people who don't have a process, oftentimes are the ones that aren't even coming to events, and they're not coming to training because their day is so disorganized. So it's been interesting to see, and it's been really empowering actually to see how many of our brokers are engaging in process improvement now.
Yeah, it's actually a good point. I didn't even think about. Like, you look at our events, we do a ton of events, whether it's in-person events or even all the virtual stuff that we do. The top people are always there and they're always engaged, and, they're not distracted, which always blew me away. But it's because they actually have a system. The wheel keeps moving, whether they're on that call or not. And, for the ones that are scrambling, they're, likely the ones that just have no, even ability to think about going on one of those calls or going to one of those events. So, kind of moving on, like, thinking about why we Canadianized it. And then, here's the thing about Tim Braheem's program. It's specifically built for the American market. And the US mortgage industry is a different animal. I mean, there's just so much about it that's different. But at the end of the day, how we deal with clients, and just like your point earlier about, a Cactus Club reference, like, the system is still a system. There still needs to be a system. And, maybe Deryk, walk us through like those differences and what doesn't maybe translate from the US to Canada.
Yeah, a couple big ones. Compliance is a lot different. Regulation in the US is a lot different. They have a lot of different government programs that we don't have in Canada. Even just our regulatory and licensing through, BCFSA, RECA, and FSRA, speaking about a better way specifically, is far different from the US state system. FinTrack is a completely different beast. Every broker, incorporated broker, is a reporting entity now, which is far different than the US. And another piece that stood out to us was just the roles in the process. It functioned a lot differently because of how loan officers are set up in the United States. So we had to basically take Tim's philosophy and revise it to align with Canadian compliance and the Canadian process, and just the simple setup of a brokerage in Canada versus the US. And on the vein of compliance, everyone thinks I'm going to build a process so I can do more business and I can be more efficient and I can buy back some of my time, those are all correct. Those are huge reasons and rationale as to why you would put time and energy into your process. But a big piece of this is compliance too. When you think about, someone that doesn't have a process, it's like, is your first call different every single time? Like, are you typing an email to send an application every single time afterwards? Think about pre-approvals, right? If you don't have a templated process when you're issuing a pre-approval, they're all going to be different. And sometimes you're going to forget to reference that there's actually still conditions of the pre-approval. And then you get people going out buying subject free because you forgot to let them know that we still need your NOA because you haven't filed taxes. And now it falls back on you. So I just think about, from an E&O compliance risk perspective, if you are running a good process with documented notes, you're documenting when hard conversations are happening, you're following up with an email after every single phone call. If a claim ever happens and they're coming to you, and I'm going to reference the Paper Shield podcast episode that Justin and I ran, you need to be prepared. If a claim ever comes through, you need to be able to prove everything that you did, everything that you said to that client. So if you forgot to send that follow-up email and you're just telling, the lawyer and the E&O insurance company that, oh, it was a conversation, I told them not to remove subjects, that's not enough, right? And that's likely going to fall back on you. So you really need to think about, when you're building your process, where you can implement different pieces that are going to protect yourself throughout the process. And, I talk to brokers all the time, and it's a tough situation from a client, or a client wants to change, their loan amount 5 days before closing. Like, if that were me, before I was going to do that, I would be having the call with the client to explain the risk. I would be talking to the lender to see if it's even viable. And then you're sending a follow-up email saying, hey, we can go ahead with this, but there's a risk that completion may be pushed, right? Like, then if completion is pushed, you have full context and proof that you had that conversation with the client prior.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly why we couldn't just license Tim's content and hand it to our brokers. Like, we truly needed to build a Canadian version that reflects our lender landscape, our regulatory environment, like you mentioned, our networks, DLC, mortgage architects, and just the way Canadian brokers actually operate. And like you mentioned, roles, like, in the US, the transaction coordinator, the processor, to our model, the AMA, the underwriter, like, those two roles are extremely different from one another. And that just plays into, what we were dealing with our market and our regulatory environment. So essentially what we did is, we looked at the success of that series that we did 2 years ago. And then we said, okay, we need the content to be able to, help these folks implement this beyond just our podcast series. So we built the CPLP, the Canadian Perfect Loan Process. It's the same philosophy, same belief that every stage of the client journey, should be intentional and systematized, but we rebuilt it from the ground up for the Canadian market. And it ties directly into what we're building with Broker Armor. And then, you look at the CPLP and Broker Armor, they are separate things, but they aren't at the same time. They're really two sides of the same coin. The process protects the client and the documentation protects the broker. And so, with that, maybe we can just kind of take this to the compliance angle and, how does the process itself become your E&O protection, the paper shield that you were mentioning?
Yeah, I mean, documented notes at every single stage, right? So if you were to look from a 30,000 view over a mortgage broker's process, you can have anywhere from 10 to 15 different stages. And the part of the process is whether you're an individual broker or you're a broker with a team, it's the templated email communications that are going out. Back to the Cactus Club reference, but now you're looking at it from a compliance angle, right? So there's templated emails that are going out at every single section of this. Every time that there's a client engagement phone call, there's a follow-up email going to the client, right? Just to make sure that everything's 100% clear. Also, we as mortgage brokers can't assume or expect that clients are understanding everything that we're telling them, right? So that follow-up email is extremely important just for client service. But in addition to that, you're also having your own internal notes, right? For the team to communicate, amongst each other to ensure that, if the AMA is making an important note about, the appraisal, that the loan specialist or underwriter has full context and understanding as well as the mortgage advisor. You're avoiding a lot of duplicated efforts. You're avoiding a ton of errors. The paper shield is essentially the more paper and note collection that you have on a file, emails, ideally keep things at a text, but anything that you can do to get your conversations in writing, that is the paper shield for a mortgage broker so that you can prove everything that you did in that process. And this includes the hard conversations, right? It has to include the hard conversations when something is going sideways and you're explaining why. Like, you never want to hide things from your client. You need to be transparent about the why behind the scenes. If timelines are being pushed or you're not going to meet a deadline such as subject removal, you need to be active on that. You need to be speaking with the real estate agent, right? And that's an email follow-up to the real estate agent so that nobody can come back on you on 6 p.m. at subject removal and go, Deryk, you didn't tell me. I wasn't in the know. This is your fault. Keep people up to date. So the more that you can communicate, the better. Truthfully, this is part of the CPLP kind of, philosophy and theory is we want to update people so they don't have to call us with questions. We wanted to limit incoming communication, I should say, from partners and clients. So the more outgoing conversation that you can have, your phone shouldn't be ringing that much, right? Staying 3 steps ahead of the client and the referral partner in every transaction is so important.
Yeah. So, what is the CPLP platform then? And why don't we walk you through what, we actually built? So the platform lives at perfectloanprocess.ca. So we'll make sure that's linked in the show notes. I built the entire thing myself from really using a lot of AI coding tools. So there was no dev team here, no agency, just really me and Claude Code and all of the infrastructure that we had created for our own practice. And we have 2 courses, and this is another big change that we wanted to focus on. So we have the full CPLP, which is 9 modules, the complete system from lead pipeline to post-close referral engine. And then PLP Lite is 5 modules, which is the essential foundation. And that was a big new addition that we wanted to focus on. I'll touch on why. So the PLP Lite is essentially somebody that is operating on their own and is considering their first hire. And so really starting to put the stepping stone frameworks in place to eventually maybe get to the full CPLP model. So the PLP Lite is what we found is far more relatable for most brokers. I would say probably 95% of our brokers would want to start at the PLP Lite modules. In each module, it isn't just a video and a PDF. Every module has video training, so recorded walkthroughs of each stage, downloadable resources, scripts, templates, checklists, email templates, worksheets, and then quizzes at the end of each module. So essentially you need 70% to unlock the next module. So it's really going to make sure you're digesting and understanding this content before moving on. So it's not a watch and forget. Like, you have to demonstrate you've absorbed the material. Essentially what we are tracking is we want to ensure we're tracking everything while we're going through that. So I really want to emphasize that piece. And module completion, there's the quiz scores, learning journeys, and then as brokerage owners, we can see exactly where every broker is in their development. So we can jump in with feedback from a coaching perspective and really help folks implement at a point where maybe they're stuck. So, Deryk, maybe from an operations perspective, like, what does it mean to actually see where your brokers are in their development?
Yeah, I mean, it's extremely powerful, right? And this is something that I think, generally speaking, our industry in Canada has never had scope into. Up until now, we've really had no visibility into broker skill development, and we're not at a point where we've mandated this. We want people to engage. We want people to, want to do it and learn and develop their skills. And, again, we've been training on this for the last couple of years, but now we can actually look and see who's engaging in this, how active they are in the course, how far they've gotten, did they just bang through it really quickly, or are they actually, methodically going through this and asking questions? And these are great conversations to have, right? I'm sure every brokerage owner listening to this, you're doing your quarterly check-ins or what have you. This is just a whole different level of value add for us to bring to each of our agents. And, the people that might not still be aware of this or they haven't dug in, it's a good reason for us to push and go sign up, start here, work through it when you have time. There's a ton of people on this already, and how quickly they're getting through it, and the questions that are coming back and the conversations that we're having. And this is part of our ongoing training where, there's follow-up sessions on each stage. And again, this is the process that we built and we ran, and we had a ton of success with it. But there's a lot of people that are going to tweak things and make it their own, and that's cool. We want people to be able to share and collaborate, right? It's a phenomenal tool. I think powerful is the best word to use for it. And, the other angle that I look at this from too is when we're onboarding a new broker, which is, it's quite frequent, being able to put this, on their desk and saying, like, start this, like, the majority of our team is engaged and we're working through this. It's a really cool conversation to have. And the feedback has just been outstanding on the process. And, it's one thing to offer a course that someone else built. And, I think the fact that Dean and I actually went through this and we coached with Tim for years and we built our own and we worked through it's not always easy to change your process. It takes time. It's like, you got to work on the weekends because the weeks are too busy. But the fact that we can have these conversations because we've done it and we've been through, hiring. We hired the wrong people multiple times and they were in the wrong roles. So it's like, us to be able to provide context on a lot of these pieces that our brokers are going through, I think there's a ton of value there as well.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, the hiring process was something we definitely struggled with as we were growing. And that's why we have a module simply around hiring, job descriptions, what to look for, personality assessments, the right personality assessment for certain roles. And really, like, the 9 modules, it takes you from building your lead pipeline all the way through post-close systems and then building that referral engine. Like, the full life cycle is really covered here. And first contact scripts, pre-approval frameworks, how to present options, how to manage underwriting, how to close strong, and how to turn every closed file into future business. And, like, every single stage has Canadian specific content and references. So when we talk about presenting options, we're talking about Canadian lenders, Canadian tools. And when we talk about compliance documentation, we're talking about what FinTrack and your provincial regulator actually require. Hey everyone, Dean here. Quick timeout from the episode to share with you the ABW Tuesday Mortgage Memo, your weekly market highlights sent directly to your inbox every Tuesday. This is certainly one you're not going to want to miss, so make sure to sign up now. You can do so with a link in the show notes, or you can head to joinabw.ca and sign up there. This is a high-level summary of market developments, regulatory updates, and housing trends every Tuesday. So hope you enjoy it, and back to the show. And so, with that, it kind of leads us into the next component of this, which, I'd say is probably the single best thing we've ever created internally. And this is the centerpiece, like, where I really want to spend most of the time in this discussion, because, everything I just described, the modules, the quizzes, the resources, like, that is the course, that's the training, there's no doubt. But here's where it really gets interesting is we launched something in March called the Agent Coach. And this is where AI fundamentally can change what a training platform can do. And so maybe Deryk, you can kind of touch on that. Like when I first showed you the agent coach, like what was your reaction?
I was a little skeptical at first, to be honest with you. I've seen a lot of AI tools coming through our chats over the last 6 months, but I went really deep on this. And truthfully, I was again skeptical of how good it really could be because we've been through coaching with humans. We've spent a lot of money on coaching and there was a ton of value. And I spent close to 3 hours going through my business plan, my goals, my flaws, my challenges, the direction of my business. And I made it very detailed, very real, and I was completely blown away with the responses and suggestions. And I think the biggest thing was the realistic nature of the coach. I went through this. Obviously, I'm not brokering right now, so my plan was, somewhat fictional, but I made it as real as it could be. And, I created goals that were unreasonable, and the coach kept bringing me back, down to real world. And they would give me honest questions about like, your goals to double your volume with no new staffing are not realistic, right? So we need to scale things back. And it was like, I put in there that I didn't actually want to increase my output of, marketing calls, but I wanted to double my volume. And it brought me back into a very realistic path to set the plan. So skepticism turned into, pretty eye-opening conversation very, very quickly. It forces you to be honest about the numbers. It forces you to be honest about your actions. And most brokers have never really gone through this rigorously. And, the accountability piece, I think that's the biggest one. There's a lot of, tools out there that can help you do a business plan and whatnot, but the accountability is huge, like daily check-ins, streak tracking, smart alerts. This is what's really missing in the industry from an online business planning coaching type platform. It's a bot, right? So it's 24/7. It's like when you have time to go through this, you work on it and it's there. It's immediately accessible to you at any time for any question business related. You kind of go into it with a bit of a closed mind, or I did anyways, on what it could really achieve and the conversations that you could have with it. And it exceeded my expectations on every single vein.
What it is essentially to the perfect loan process, the Canadian perfect loan process is it's a premium subscription layer on top of the course. So the course is free to all brokers in Canada. Anyone that's a licensed mortgage broker has free access to the course. And we wanted to be intentional with that because we believe in it so much and we believe that the industry can, get a lot better and get a lot more systematized. And, AI for a lot of people would be, one of the biggest, if not the biggest threats in their business. So, if we can take what we learned, systematized it, we can have AI help us enhance our own business practices. And that's really what I go through in the entire AI mortgage mastery course. And so essentially what this premium subscription layer is it's powered by Claude. So Claude Opus 4.6, which is Anthropic's most powerful AI model, truly the most powerful AI model on the planet right now. And it does things that no traditional training program can do. So first, there's a floating AI chat widget on every page of the platform. So you can ask it questions about any module, any concept, any resources. It knows the entire CPLP curriculum. Like that is its core knowledge base. It knows which modules you've completed and what your quiz scores were, where you are in the course. It knows exactly. And so when you ask a question, it gives you a personalized answer based on your actual progress. The tier system is smart. So students get 30 messages a day and subscribers get unlimited. So like the AI agent, it adjusts its behavior based on your tier. So, if you're a subscriber or not. And so if you're on the course, you're listening to this and you're trying to chat with it and you're maybe not getting, the feedback you're expecting, it's probably because you haven't upgraded to the paid tier. And I just want to talk about the business planning agent because it's truly the most powerful piece of this entire program. And what it is so when a subscriber signs up for the enhanced AI coach access, they go through a 9-step business planning session. It can run about 30 minutes if you really go deep here. And what it is, it's not a form that you fill out. It's an actual conversation with the AI coach. And step one, you get into your current production state, your volume, units, revenue, mortgage mix. Like the AI cross-checks your math in real time. So after you finish that, you go into step two, which is target setting. So, a lot about what Deryk was just talking about, growth targets and scenario modeling, and then, giving you live feedback. Is this even realistic or, what you should maybe reset? And then step 3 is your strategic goals. So the top 3 to 5 goals beyond volume. So the agent makes you actually quantify each one. And that's where, Deryk would have been getting that feedback when he was testing it and going with, much higher targets than were realistic. And then step 4 is the business source breakdown. So basically reverse engineering where deals need to come from. And then step 5, revenue generating activities, weekly behavioral targets. The agent builds your realtor engine math or your referral partner engine math, whatever your target is. And then step 6, the database and referral engine. So optimizing your existing database. And there's a lot of pieces here that are very powerful. And then this is probably one of my favorite pieces about it is step 7, the SWOT analysis. So like a very honest diagnostic, the top 3 opportunities and top 3 risks in your business. And then step 8, where it starts to round out, systems and process ratings. So rate 8 operational areas, 1 to 5. Really what it is it's a capacity check. Can you actually hit these targets? And then step 9 is where it wraps up and then moves you forward. So the 90-day focus plan, the top 3 priorities with specific actions and a weekly rhythm. And here's the key. The AI, as we've talked about, it does push back. And if you say your average loan size is 400,000 and you've funded 50 units last year, but then you claim 25 million in volume, the AI actually catches that, right? The math doesn't work. It forces you to get real with your numbers. And that is the most important piece. Let's just talk about that for a second. So you're basically giving every broker their own AI business coach that knows their numbers, and it's available to them, like you said, at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday or whenever they're wanting to jump into it. So it lives right inside the platform that they're already using for training. It's not that, other login. It's not the other app. It's the same platform with an AI layer on top. So maybe you can kind of touch on that.
I think that's the biggest benefit of this, right? And just keep in mind, these go together, right? Like you work through the course and then the AI coach is in sync with the course that you're working through or that you've completed, right? So the fact that you're going to be so ingrained in this course and you're thinking about your process and you're building your process, like you're always coming back to the CPLP login to work with your coach. It's on demand. I think that was the best thing for me. I mean, we're all busy, right? And I was trying to get through this just from my own knowledge and being able to, have conversations around this to our agents and, people that are actually working through the course. And that was the best thing for me is I could sit there, on my laptop at 9 o'clock at night after the kids went to bed and plug away for an hour, right? And that's really, truly, I mean, thinking about our own experience, working through a process build over and over and over, you don't get a lot of that done during the day, right? Like you're busy doing deals, you're busy working with your staff, 8 to 5. Like the build part was always kind of outside of work hours, a little bit in the evening, a little bit on the weekends. And it's just because things are silent and you can focus on that part of your business. If you can get it done during the day, great. But I think that was a huge value to me. It doesn't matter who you hire as a human coach, nobody's on demand, right? Like nobody's accessible to you as you need them at your hours. And, to talk about our experience, as much as we had phenomenal coaching, it was like we were always too busy to jump on this Thursday call at 3 p.m. We did them, we never missed them, but we were too busy to do it and we couldn't focus, right?
It was always a challenge for us because the coach always wanted to meet during business hours on a business day. And I'd say, the 24/7 piece is great, but the one thing that really took this to another level for me is once you complete your business plan conversation, the platform unlocks a full dashboard. So there's just over 6 tabs there. It's your business plan overview with all the metrics, the SWOT analysis, and your 90-day plan are front and center. A daily tracker where you log activities every day, leads, applications, files funded, a weekly scorecard aggregating that data, and monthly comparison charts, a pipeline funnel showing conversion rates, and then your goals tab with progress rings, like just like an Apple Watch, like tracking against your annual targets and smart alerts that tell you when you're falling behind. Streak tracking builds accountability through these daily check-ins. And the whole thing is designed so you can't hide from your own numbers. And we haven't talked about role play. Subscribers can actually, practice real scenarios with the AI. So pre-approval calls with, nervous first-time buyers, rate objection conversations, realtor pitch meetings. Like the AI actually plays the other side and adjusts difficulty and then gives structured feedback after each session. And you can do this as much as you'd want. And it connects the feedback to the specific CPLP module that covers that skill or covers that content that you're getting into. So you truly can learn the concept in the module. Like you practice with the AI and the AI tells you which module to revisit if you're struggling and really closes the loop there. The daily check-in is amazing if you're tracking prospecting calls and what you're doing for prospecting, whether it's realtor calls, realtor coffees, lunch and learns, open houses, financial planner calls. There's so much there that, we're just scratching the surface on in this conversation. And, we've talked about this in the previous AI podcast that we did, but like there is so much here to take advantage of. I just wish we had this. I mean, we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on coaching, and we still do to this day. And then that's one thing I wanted to touch on before moving on to, the next segment is this coaching experience is amazing, but I wouldn't close the door on a human to human coach. Like the ability to have a human that is experienced in this type of space is not what we're trying to get away from. We're trying to only enhance that. Like if you had this dashboard, you had the ability to practice these concepts, imagine how more insightful and impactful those coaching sessions would be with your coach. And, we've talked to a lot of coaches about what we built here and made it very clear to them is like, we want to triple down on our brokers working with coaches. If that's something we can enhance with this tool, we believe this tool will, add an incredible enhancement to that. So moving on, the Realtor engine. And, this is one thing I want to highlight specifically because, if there was one big thing I'd say Tim Braheem really hammered home to us and we hammer home in the CPLP, it's that your Realtor relationships are the engine of your business. And, maybe Deryk, you can just touch on that. Like, what do you see from brokers who manage their realtor relationships well versus those who maybe just wing it?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting when you think about it, right? Like even the conversation that we've had to date on this podcast, like it's all been around client communication for the most part, right? And this is where brokers will go hard is like, I want to make sure my clients are happy, they're supported, they're hearing from me constantly. Even like the post funding, what are we doing? No one really takes that and flips it over for your referral partners. And like you talk about a monthly newsletter, like why are we not doing a monthly newsletter to our real estate agents, right? Like when we're doing 13 touch milestone updates throughout the process, like is that just going to a client? Because that should absolutely go to a realtor. And I think the best way to summarize your question, Dean, is the ones that are systematically in front of their realtors, they're protecting and extending the shelf life of that realtor referral partner, right? I mean, we've always kind of joked about this, that realtors have a shelf life, but I think the shelf life falls on the broker, right? And it's because most brokers, they do a coffee, they get a deal, things went well, awesome. We kind of sit there and expect that the next deal is going to come in. Like that is not the way that these relationships operate in any capacity. You have to be constantly getting in touch with them, staying top of mind, providing value. And it's not always a lunch or a coffee, right? And I think one thing for people to really think about when it comes to process, especially for anyone that's just digging into process now, realtors, most of them don't have a process, right? And this is a piece that you can now start to have conversations around with real estate agents to like talk about your process, right? You're not just selling the fact that you're a broker and you've been doing this for 12 years and you got awards and B, alt and private. It's like you're talking about your process and the experience that you're providing to their client and to them. And you'll see these realtors like, their eyes open up and it's like you can actually coach them on building a process and where you're finding value. And it's like, are you doing newsletters and can I get engaged and I can help you with your newsletters? And, we do a Tuesday memo every single week and it's open to anyone, not just a Better Way. And like, we have some brokers within a Better Way that are actually just converting that using Chat or Gemini. And they're using that as a weekly update to their real estate agents, right? Probably a 15-minute task, but they're getting an email or a text out to these real estate agents every single week. Long answer to your question, but the brokers that are paying attention to their realtors and they've actually figured out a process to engage, stay in touch, bring wow factor moments, like they are just continuing to extend the shelf life of that relationship, whereas the other ones will continue to fall off.
And that's exactly why we built the realtor tracking system into this platform. And, I briefly touched on this, but you categorize your realtor partners into tiers: core, growth, and inactive. And like the system tracks every touch. So meetings, pipeline updates, value adds, social engagement, events, calls, emails, and it flags you when you're overdue. So, a core partner they just simply can't, go untouched in 14 days. Like it's flagged. A growth partner at 30 days, flagged. And it ties it back to your business plan. Like if you said 30% of your business should come from realtor referrals and your source tracker shows you're at 15% in the dashboard, that right there shows the gap and the smart alerts flag it. And so the AI coach brings it up in conversation as well. Like everything is fully connected. It's a total ecosystem around you, your goals, and your business plan. So most brokers, they take a realtor for coffee, have a great conversation, and then don't follow up for 3 months, like you just mentioned. And like this system makes that impossible to ignore. So with that, like let's get into maybe the competitive angle here. And like I just want to put this into perspective. Like the Canadian mortgage industry is at a pivotal moment, whether it's FinTrack requirements that have, expanded in our day-to-day. Rates have been extremely volatile. The competition from the banks, it's real. The brokers who are going to thrive are the ones who have these systems. And so, from Deryk, maybe your point of view, like you talk to brokers from other brokerages all the time. What are they getting in terms of training and development currently, would you say?
I mean, the typical feedback that I hear is it's lender training, right? Some of them, not even much of that. Yeah, I've yet to see many brokerages that have engaged to help their brokers be better brokers. It's a lot of, we'll do a compliance update, once a year. We bring in a different lender once a month or once a week. And truthfully, I mean, fair, everyone needs to have lenders and we need to be engaged. But to me, that's the absolute baseline of what we want to provide to our agents at a better way. And to be transparent, this was part of the reason that we wanted to get into the brokerage side of our industry, right? Like Dean and I both brokered together for, about 10 years. We built a good business. We built a good process, a good brand. We had a good team, all built on this philosophy that we're talking about here with the perfect loan process. And part of our conversation 4 years ago when we started to engage in looking at, brokerages to acquire, it was like, what are we going to do to stand out? What value are we going to bring different than the current owners and different than everyone else in the industry? And this was it, right? It was like we put a ton of time into this. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of great brokers in the country and in Canada, but most of them have not gone deep on process. They have not gone deep on brand. They have not gone deep on hiring a team and trying to buy their time back and get themselves out of the minutia of the deal. And, I could pick 100 brokers and I would venture to guess that 95% of them are not where they want to be from a process, time, efficiency perspective, right? We knew that we could come into here and share what we had learned. And, again, 2 years ago, we ran a podcast series on this, right? Like we hosted live training for a better way. So it's kind of putting a massive bow on all of that and making it like a step-by-step achievable, realistic process for every single agent, doesn't matter what capacity or tenure or volume you're at, to go through a course that is going to ingrain in your brain. And now the AI coach, in addition to that, to help you through every single piece, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, here's like the honest truth. Like most brokerages don't offer anything close to this. And most brokerages give you a desk, maybe a CRM login, maybe, and say, go figure it out. And, maybe a webinar once a quarter, maybe a PDF library somewhere. What we've built is fundamentally different. And the full CPLP training program, these 9 modules, Canadian specific, quiz gated, AI powered agent coach with business planning and daily accountability, like principals who don't broker, is exactly us and why we were be able to actually put the time into this. And I could speak for Deryk, Jason, and myself, like we are 100% focused on broker success. Like that's it. Having this dual choice network is something we are quite proud about. Like, so whether it's DLC or mortgage architects, like we are the only brokerage in Canada that offers both. And this compliance infrastructure that we built around Broker Armor, Justin Noda as our CCO, this content engine now, like 62 plus podcast episodes weekly, the Tuesday memo events, like our 32 events that we hosted last year. Like, again, I'm not trying to make this a brag, but like, I just really want to emphasize this because we don't talk about this enough. And we've having so many conversations in the last 2 months. It became very evident, like we're not just a brokerage that collects overrides. Like we're actively investing in our broker success. And we built this platform because when our brokers do better, the whole company does better. Again, speak for all of us. Like we wake up every single day and think, how can we give more value to our agents and our industry? And so, looking ahead and kind of where we'll wrap here, like we're not done building, like that's for sure. We have far more interactive widgets that are coming, pipeline trackers, time audits, tools, referral scorecards, the bulk personalization. So, you can download every template, customized to your business in one zip. And this AI gets smarter with every conversation. So when it comes to this tool, there's so much more to come. When it comes to the AI space and what we built with the AI Mortgage Master Coach, if that's something you're not familiar with, reach out, get access to that as well. It's another free course that we're giving, all of our listeners. There's just so much here that's in our roadmap, and we can't wait to share it all. We can't speak on it all in this podcast, but we'll continue to share and we'll continue to bring that up, in every conversation. So in closing, like Deryk, any final comments?
The CPLP, given what it had done for us in our business, proof is in the pudding type conversation. I can see the drastic need for this in the mortgage broker industry in Canada. You look at bankers that are leaving and coming to the broker channel, like this is exactly what our industry needs. And I'm actually quite surprised that it's taken this long to see more of this, prevalent and, being pushed out and at no cost. I'm so bought into this because I've been through it myself. And if I had the tech that Dean had created here when we were coaching, it would have, been exponentially helpful when it came to growth and fast tracking this. So at the end of the day, I'm really excited to see this. I'm excited to see the agents that are engaging in this. And if you're a broker who's been thinking about making a move, this is what it looks like to be at a brokerage that invests in your growth, and looking forward to the next one.
Yeah. And, with that, like the podcast, the CPLP, Broker Armor, the AI training, the events, it's all connected. And, our goal here is we're building an ecosystem where brokers have everything they need to succeed and be protected while they do it. If you want to check out the platform, perfectloanprocess.ca, again, it will be linked in the notes here. Full CPLP with all 9 modules, or PLP Lite for the streamlined version. And if you want the full AI coaching experience, the business planning agent, the daily tracker, the role play, the personalized resources, that's essentially the premium subscription. So it's $997 for 6 months or $1,397 annually to have full access to that. And if you're a broker thinking about what a brokerage looks like that offers all these tools, definitely reach out. We have a number of applications going on right now. If you're part of the Mortgage Masters webinar series, we're going to be touching on that in future episodes as well. That's going to be an ongoing live training resource for everyone in the industry. If you're part of that, there is an application there to apply for free access to the CPLP enhanced version with the AI coach. So definitely take advantage of that. We want to work hand in hand with a few key brokers that are serious about this, so that we can take through the entire year and really see some improvements and track that along with them. So definitely apply for free access. If you got value from this episode, please share it with a broker who needs to hear it, and subscribe wherever you're listening, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and please leave us a review. And if you haven't listened to the original Perfect Loan Process series, feel free to go back through each episode. But I will preface, like, a lot has changed. 2 years is a long time, especially with the AI developments that, we've seen. And so my recommendation would really be go to the course. It's free. Go through it. Take this seriously, and, you won't be disappointed. So that's it for today. I'm Dean Lawton. This is Deryk Williamson, and this has been the Mortgage Broker Podcast. So we'll see you next time, and on to the next. Thank you for tuning in. If you found value in this show, please subscribe to our channel on your preferred platform. We're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Your support is incredibly appreciated. We also welcome your reviews and feedback, which are crucial in helping us deliver outstanding educational content. Feel free to share your thoughts. A 5-star review would be fantastic if you think we earned it. Now, a message about something that means a great deal to us and to everyone at A Better Way Mortgage Group. City Reach Care Society is our chosen charity partner for 2026. For over 20 years, City Reach has been serving thousands of vulnerable individuals, children, and families across Greater Vancouver. They call themselves the Hope Business. When you see what they do, you'll understand why. Through their Food for Families program, City Reach provides fresh, nutritious groceries to over 4,500 people every single month. They partner with 54 schools across Vancouver, Surrey, and the Tri-Cities to make sure kids have access to food, hygiene supplies, and the support they need to thrive. Every August, their back-to-school blast puts backpacks filled with school supplies into the hands of 1,000 children heading back to the classroom. Here's what makes your support go even further. Every single dollar donated to City Reach translates into $10 worth of food for families in need. You can learn more, donate, or sign up to volunteer at cityreach.org. That's CITYREACH.org. Once again, thank you for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.